goes wandering through the aisles of my heart's store. I bought myself a Pictomite drum and some Bristol core. I made a fancy comic, and now I am all set to be the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. I'll have a forum and a blog and links from DVD. I'll get reviewed by Webster, Clean and William G. The world can be a royster. I think it's a safe bet when you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. When you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, yeah.
Welcome to the Urfspace podcast. I have no idea what number this one is. We should
find out.
Yeah, we should start numbering them. We are interviewing James Windor-smith, who is a artist and writer and comic creator, and also, I would argue, comic scholar, because of how much knowledge he has about the industry and people and everything like that. And so I'm going to put him in the big window. So
all right. So does James know all the references in my little theme tune there? Which I got from this guy, Owen Dunn wrote it, and I heard it, and it went around back in the day, and I loved it sometime in the early 2000s. Probably around 2004, I'd say. No, 5, 6, 2006, probably that song he did. 2006, 7, somewhere around there. And then I put some of the references in, he says the Rich Burlew making $1 million on his Kickstarter. That happened later.
Well, I just got a toe tapping, so.
Yes.
Well, I like the Rage comics in it.
The Rage comics, yes. I don't know much about Rage comics, and yes, all those things were like little things that to me were like high points of web comic drama. William G. I don't really know what that was about. Yes, he tells web comic fans to get fucked.
That was 2005, I noticed.
Yes, that was many moons past.
Yes,
but,
yeah, these are all references. So maybe you can tell us a bit about what's going on nowadays with web comics and things.
Yeah,
because I don't know.
So James, let's talk about Cactus.
Okay.
Your book that you're working on right now.
Okay.
Where did it start, and how did you get to it? Because I know that you had your strokes, and that kind of like jump started it somehow.
Oh goodness, sorry. When was that, James?
That was 2019, like right before the pandemic started. So I had a little head start on the isolationism.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And a good friend of mine in England just had a stroke as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So yeah, yes. So I'm sorry about that, but you seem to be doing all right. Well done.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually created the Cactus like a long time ago, like around 2009 or so. Like I was like hanging out at a comic store, Golden Eagle Comics, and we decided one day to make a back and forth comic where I draw a panel, then somebody else would draw a panel, vice versa. And I drew some odd shape, and somebody joked it looked like a cactus. And that was the beginning of it all. He actually became a cactus in that comic then. He was actually
like one of Chris's drawings, yes.
I believe he was an enemy of the Green Lantern at the very beginning. But he would just come by and say, "Hey, I'm a harmless cactus," and then he'd like throw a chainsaw at somebody and say, "I got you,"
Yeah.
like silly, stupid stuff like that. So, about a year or two later, I actually self-published a comic of the cactus. Was called Cactus World. I don't even think I have a copy anymore. I sold about 75 copies, but that's
pretty good. That's pretty good. I'd be happy when I sold that many copies.
I was a shameless self-promoter. I was out there like constantly saying, "Hey, buy my book,"
Okay, yeah. Yes.
You're still doing that.
Yeah,
Well,
That's very
you
true,
sell more copies like that. Yeah, you don't know. I don't know. Yeah, there was a guy. We had a Modern Tales booth back in the day, and the marvelous Patrick was there, and he was really good about sort of shouting out to everybody.
Yes, I'm still friends with Patrick.
Are you?
Yeah, he's got a family now. He's got kids and everything.
Oh wow, yeah, he was really young then. Well, we all were, but yeah.
Yeah. But so you had your strokes. So you created the character. You had your strokes, and then you're like, I got to make a comic.
Yeah. Now I was still working a day job, and I found it really, really hard to do that and a comic at the same time. It was like having a second job and not getting paid for it, So like now that I had the stroke, I took the opportunity. Well, first, when I had the stroke, I lost the ability to draw in this hand, and I couldn't write my name. I couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize how bad I had it until like I took a test in the hospital, and one of the questions was to draw a box, and I couldn't do it. And like obviously, I had been an artist for a long time before that, and drawing a box was kind of like not being able to draw a box was pretty disheartening, and that was like the wake up call for me, and I decided like if I was gonna like regain that ability to draw, I was never gonna take it for granted again. So look at me now, I've got like 3 published comics. I'm working on my 4th right now. I've had Richard Friend do pinups for 2 of my comics. I've had 2 specialty covers by Dave Sim now. That's pretty cool.
Oh,
stuff.
Dave Sim! Oh, wow!
Yeah.
Yes, I know he's a very controversial figure, but he's a very talented artist.
Yes, well, I like to talk about Dave Sim. Yes.
I don't know who you guys are talking about. You can fill me in if you
Dave
want.
Sim did Cerebus.
Yes, he created a comic called
Aardvark.
Cerebus the Aardvark, which was one of the first sort of big independent comics, and you could find it in England, but it cost a fortune. I always wanted to buy it, but I could. I had to go to Forbidden Planet in London.
This is what's
it would be
amazing
there.
about it.
And but it looked so good, and it was just sort of certainly the beginning. It was exactly what I would loved. It was a sort of Aardvark character in a fantasy scenario, and then he does the sort of church story, High Society, his sort of second graphic novel, I suppose. It's where so now he's suddenly addressing sort of all these issues of politics and things, and it gets he's doing something quite interesting, and I haven't got very far with it myself. I've read. But then I know that later on he went a bit off the rails, and he sort of started going into quite misogynistic rants.
Yes.
Really sort of going sort of deeply off. But meanwhile, he's got this guy Gerhard doing the backgrounds that are looking like, and the comics looking amazingly better than ever. But his rants from the comic are sort of crossing over into real life, which always. He wrote a lot, and he gave a lot of advice to artists, and I learned a lot from him about things. There was one thing he said about he was having trouble with hands, and some other artists, I can't remember, some other artists had told him, "Oh, don't worry, you just do Dave Sim hands," and then he was like, "Oh, I do Dave Sim hands," right, and then that helped him with his hands, and little bits of advice like that he would give. So so how did you get in touch with him and all that? How did that come about, and what happened?
Well, I was a big fan, and he did one of his Kickstarters where they had a sketchbook thing, like it was just blank, and you could fill it in. And I basically just filled it up like in a couple of days with just drawings of Cerebus, and alongside on each page, I wrote another sentence about my condition and what I'd been through with my health, and I sent it off to him, and the very last page was like talking about how I couldn't wait to get back into the art thing, and then all of a sudden, then I had a second stroke, and that was the end. so he actually sent me. Is
that what happened?
Oh yeah. I spent about 6 months after the first stroke, got everything back. I actually started selling prints. I was gonna be a print seller, and then I had a second stroke, which
my god.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this hand. Like I have to raise it with this. Like I have a lot of health issues with my non-drawing side. So I do draw still, but I draw digitally now because I didn't realize how much you really need your second hand to really get everything really truly done. Like erasing a page, even how do you really hold the page down? with one hand erasing it.
Yes. Okay. So yes, no, I have a disability in my legs, my lower body. It doesn't affect my upper body, which is why I pursue drawing. But actually, I'm aware that you sort of need your full body really to be a sort of super fine artist. Like because you need to be like a ballerina. It's like it really involves your whole body, and a lot of like my cartooning is sort of working around that.
No, I totally
but a
get
lot of
you.
cartoonists are. We're all like we're not fine artists. We're cartoonists. We do a different thing.
So, are you using Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint?
Yeah, Clip Studio right now, and I think since you've seen my stuff, my stuff is actually still feels pretty organic. I've been told by several people they didn't even know I was doing digital art.
Did you want to share a screen and share some of your art?
I do have a copy of the Dave Sim cover here.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So did you communicate with him a lot, Dave Sim, while doing what?
Well,
that looks great. I can't see it too well, but
oh, I'm sorry. Let me bring that back up there.
yeah. Hold it still a sec. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. It looks great. Yeah.
Yeah. As you can see, there was a bit of a Cerebus parody thing going on there, so that's pretty fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I do have the original art, but I have it in another room. So.
Yeah, because he was last thing I saw. I was sort of following him on Patreon. Yes, he was doing the as Alex Raymond. What was the Dream of Alex Raymond or something?
The Strange Death of Alex Raymond.
Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Yes.
Yeah,
and
that came out though, didn't it?
Oh, he sure did. He's actually working on Volume 2 right now. I've got some preview pages of that, like on my phone somewhere, I think. So that's kind of cool.
So yeah,
Very
he's
cool.
doing something very. I couldn't really make it out from what I've seen of it so far. I mean, it seemed pretty out there though.
Oh yeah, very out there, but very beautiful artwork.
Yes, very beautiful artwork. And where is he then with all his after his rants and stuff like that? I mean, what does he say about all that now?
I never bring it up because the way I see it is, why bring up something you're definitely not like that you're going to basically argue about, because like, it's like Steve Ditko back in the day. They say that the reason that he would argue politics is because everybody else brought it up. So why bring it up?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yes.
Yeah, well, Steve Ditko had some interesting ideas his whole life.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
so, yeah, like he would, in Spider-Man, he would have Spider-Man swinging over protesters going, "Those dirty hippies," and then
Right.
Stan Lee would put in the same panel going, "Hey, your Uncle Stan likes you."
Oh yeah. Very
Like-
interesting.
Yeah, like it made it to the page, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And then Mr. A, with that he created for DC Comics, is very interesting.
Actually, Mr. A, he didn't create for
Oh, he
for
didn't?
EC. That was actually in Wits End. It was a creator-owned comic book.
Okay, but
Right, so-
how did DC get it?
They don't have it. They have The Question,
Mm.
which was a Charlton book originally, which
Okay.
is very similar to Mr. A, but it's a little toned back.
Maybe I'm mixing up the two. It's very possible.
Yeah, Mr. A has a metal face, or a very blank face, whereas The Question has no face.
Otherwise, they're just the same.
Pretty much, they're basically both Rorschach.
Yeah, they're basically both Rorschach characters. Yeah.
Rorschach, yes. Okay. Yes. Rorschach, one of the greatest characters, really, isn't he?
Well-
Something interesting.
Yeah.
So on Facebook and stuff, you've been doing like I call them phishing scam questions, where you're like, "Hey, what's your favorite show?"
Right.
Hey, what'd you name your dog? And stuff like that. But we were talking a little bit about it before the show, and I just wanted you to expand upon it, about how you get to know people more with those
Sure.
questions.
I can even expand upon my answer quite a bit, because it's multi-layered, really. One thing is, I've had a few people like die in the past couple of months and everything, and I was like, I don't really know them as well as I should know them. So I started asking these questions, just basically getting interesting answers and getting to know my followers. But it's pretty funny, because you get like about a couple hundred answers from people, because I've noticed that people love talking about themselves, really, and like it's great. Like yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I asked like, name your favorite woman director, and like and for me, I'd say Chantal Ackerman, or somebody like that. But I don't think she came up at all. But it was very interesting to see what people had to say.
Yeah, I'm sure I immediately know who Chantal Ackerman is.
Well, she did like documentaries from Canada, like one was Letters from Home, I think it was called, or Letters from My Mother, where her mother basically like is writing to her, and she's living in the artsy fartsy part of New York at the time, and she's like saying like, why do you never call? And then she gets like eventually like her letters become very abusive towards her and stuff until she's finally just done with her mother.
It sounds like a good movie. Yeah, it sounds like a good movie.
Yeah, it's on the Criterion channel, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Criterion Collection is excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But then they also have movies like Hanzo the Razor in the Criterion Collection.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm surprised you're familiar with it. A lot of people aren't familiar with that movie, and it's one that you can't like recommend to people.
Yeah,
because it's like pro-rape.
Yeah,
but it's in the Criterion Collection.
Pro-rape?
And then you watch it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I can see why this is in the Criterion Collection.
The first time I saw it was actually on TV when IFC was non-commercial.
Yeah, yeah.
Before they considered that '70s show a independent film.
Yeah, somehow.
Right. So, and I was talking earlier, like off camera, about Nick Cave. Well, I was talking to Richard Friend earlier about an old documentary I saw on IFC where Nick Cave was getting an actual blowjob from Lydia Lunch, and you actually saw his penis on television. So
yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Wait, what channel was that on?
This was IFC.
IFC.
Oh, IFC. I was going to say. I don't think that was on NBC.
No.
No, I had
today.
The first time I ever saw the movie Train Spotting was on IFC.
Oh yeah, I've actually never seen that.
Oh, it's a good movie. It's a good movie that becomes a bad movie, which makes it a great movie. Does that make sense?
I think I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's about heroin addiction, and so
Right.
it follows that cycle of heroin addiction of everything's good at first, and then it crumbles. And so it's a very hard movie to watch. It's
kind of like
Danny Boyle.
Requiem for a Dream almost.
Yeah, but it predates Requiem.
No.
Yeah. Requiem for Dream's harder to watch. Train Spotting's quite entertaining to watch.
Right.
Train Spotting has
It's sort of have your cake and eat it. Heroin's here's what a terrible thing heroin is, but we can have quite a fun movie about it.
I do remember a lot of Iggy Pop around the time that movie came out.
Yeah.
And all those Ewan McGregor and all those actors became quite famous and had long careers.
I only remember the actor who played Sick Boy. Like he eventually played Sherlock Holmes on an American TV show.
Oh yes. Was Elementary. Yeah, yes. My friend really liked that.
But he was in Dracula 2000. That's all I remember.
You mean the leisure guy? Like what attracts you to the leisure industry? In a word, leisure. Is it that guy? Is that who you're talking
Johnny
about?
Lee Miller.
I don't know what his name is.
Thank you.
So he's done all right. And Robert Carlyle, wasn't he in that as well?
Yeah, I think he played Big B.
Big B.
Yeah. It was an interesting movie, and it's actually like one of my favorite movies. And even though it's a hard movie to watch, you watch it and you're like, oh man, that sucks. Like, he hallucinates a dead baby on the ceiling. That's all I have to say.
The dead baby.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, I'll have to add it to my list.
Yeah.
The dead baby on the ceiling was great, yeah.
Well, I mean, the dead baby in the crib.
Yes.
Like I can't see that. I can't look at that scene. I always look away from the screen. It's bad. Yeah. But yeah, and then later on he's trying to kick heroin, and so he's hallucinating, and so the dead baby comes to him on the ceiling and then drops down on him.
The dead baby, he's like lying on the bed and he sees this dead baby crawling on the ceiling. And his head turns around towards him.
Yeah. It's and the thing is you can tell it's like totally a low budget movie. Like you can see the track that the baby is taking and everything, but it's still an effective scene.
It was pre-CGI. They didn't have CGI in those days.
Well, no, they had CGI. Just Danny Boyle didn't have access to it.
Yeah, but
Fair
you,
enough.
yeah, I don't know. But that was the days of the dancing baby. That was even. There was.
But that
Ally
was also
McBeal?
Jurassic Park, so
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Jurassic Park. Was that before or after Jurassic Park? Yes, it was after
That was
Jurassic
after.
Park.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm thinking late 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but even
Maybe
so,
you
they
should-
still couldn't do a very realistic baby.
Well,
They
they
still
didn't have
probably
that
can't do a
Spielberg
very
money.
realistic baby. Although I have to say, when my own son was born, I realised that all those unrealistic looking alien babies that I'd seen in the movies weren't as unrealistic as I thought, because they do look quite unrealistic and they move in a very unrealistic way.
Well, that's because you have to support the head, you know.
Yeah.
well, you don't
But-
have to, but
Well,
Just-
yeah,
They tell you that, and you're so goddamn scared when you take them home. I mean, I was anyway.
Oh yeah, that's the scary bit. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Tina had to stay in hospital a few days. That was nice, and then I had like a day off.
And when you take them home, it's like terrifying.
I had a day
Yeah.
of grace.
Like,
and-
ah.
Yeah. Then it's like, and then they take you in the like you're in the wheelchair out to the car, and then like, have you got your car seat? Okay, off you go. And then you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm responsible for this thing.
The
That's when it
first
hits
thing I
you.
Yeah.
did after I had Annabelle, the very first thing, I was wearing these pants, in fact, out of the hospital, is I went and got sushi. Because I was pregnant during COVID. And so restaurants were closed and you can't have fish
Oh shit.
when you're pregnant. And so I couldn't have sushi for like 9 months. I craved it. And so the first thing I did was went and had sushi. They had just opened up the restaurants here in Denver. It was nice. Yeah, it was good.
It-
What about
it's
you?
good.
How'd you crawl out of COVID, James?
well, I definitely crawled because of, like, my right leg doesn't quite work, so you know. But yeah, I'd say my experience was pretty long and pretty arduous. When I had the first stroke, you know, I totally turned my health around. You know, I was walking like 7 miles a day, but it was just too little too late. Like I had just eaten very, very badly. I've had diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, and it was just too late. Like everything was set to go off. So despite being healthier, despite losing like something like 40 pounds, it was just, you know, what could you do? So I was in a rehab center for like 3 months. Like it was really, really a long process to recover. But you know, I'm a pretty positive person. I remember the nurses had me talk to other patients that were despondent, you know, a little down on their luck. They were actually jealous of the progress I have in this hand, which, as you can see, is not very much. But there were people that were worse off than me. There was amputees everywhere. It was a pretty dark place.
That's 2019.
That was actually 2020 by the second stroke.
Oh, okay. And 2019 was the first, or
Yeah, that in November, and then in June was the second one.
Okay. So you were in this place for 3 months. Did you work on your comic there?
I actually, believe it or not, I actually worked on my first comic there, which was actually an anthology. It was what was it called? It was Image Grand Design.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard of that one. I basically, like in the 6 months leading up to the second stroke, I was given about 6 pages of that to do. And after the stroke, I had to basically withdraw. So I had to tell them, I'm sorry, guys, I'm in the hospital. There's no way I could do a comic book from here. And somebody there basically said, hey, we still want you to contribute. And, you know, they gave me 1 pinup to do. So on a piece of typing paper I got at the hospital, I drew a picture of the Max, which was, you know, pretty silly and rudimentary. And I just took a little photograph with my phone of it. And they actually had somebody ink it and somebody else color it. And it actually ran in that book.
Oh,
So, yeah, you know, I'll always have those guys back for, you know, for giving me my first published work. Not counting my own self-published comic before.
I mean, you've been kind of a super fan of comics for a long time. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people in the industry know you because you've been talking to them and asking questions of them and seeing them at conventions and, you know, everything like that for a long time.
Right. I've only been to a couple conventions. I remember the first person I met was Jim Balin, and the Lita Ford comic had just come out, and somebody was getting it signed, and he was just complaining that he hadn't even received his copies yet.
Yes, but that's very common in the industry.
Oh yeah, you learn that from fast.
Yeah, author copies. Well,
When I
trouble is
get
no one's
around
making any
to
money.
it.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you got to insist on some author copies.
Yeah. They'll send it to you when they get around to it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So at some point they'll have like a stack of them somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I when I worked for Norwayne, I was the only one that I have confirmed got paid by them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I held the pages hostage. I had to, they were in Italy and I was in America, and I took full scan pages, but I sent them low resolution images, and they were like, "No, we need the high resolution." I said, "Yes, pay me."
Yeah, that's smart.
Nice.
Yeah, they yelled at me and said I was acting like I was the biggest name in the book, and I'm like, "No, I'm acting like somebody who needs to get paid."
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to do it. I mean, and they'll say stuff like that. Well, so it's not, you're not complaining. Well, you just because somebody else is doing something doesn't mean that you have to.
I like
Yeah.
your ransom
I don't know.
strategy.
Yeah, you got to stand up for your rights. And we only get rights when we all stand up together and do
Yes.
it. That's the thing. They'll keep us separated and isolated and not talking to one another. Whatever they can, because they know that as soon as we start talking to each other, we'll get ideas above our station.
A good example of that is actually Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham, who weren't getting paid by what was the company that McFarlane bought?
Are you talking about Malibu?
No, not Malibu. The one that they were doing Marvel Man and Miracle Man at.
Oh, it wasn't Valiant, was it?
No, but the company was going under, and they were not getting paid for their work at Miracle Man. So any of the pages you've seen since then were never handed over.
Yeah.
Because you've got to basically put your foot down, or else the companies will walk all over you.
Wow. Yeah, Miracle Man for a long time was really hard to find, and they put out an anthology of it a couple years ago, but they removed Moore's name from it.
Yeah, the original author, I believe they call it.
Yeah, the original author. And I don't understand why they did that.
He actually insisted on that.
Why?
Yeah,
He has no interest in them using his name to make money.
Yeah, he's so sad on them. He's so I don't know. He can't help it. He's a proper wizard. What are you gonna do?
So good, because the Miracle Boy, he melts the kid with his eyes, and then he turns into a religious figure with the beam, and it's a good story.
Yeah, for sure. I read it long after it was done. I actually had to read it online because I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I was in the same boat.
You just think they're crooks who exploit artists.
Yeah, well, I think that's why there's a lot of independent books now, is people are just self-publishing themselves, like you and your successful Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah. And I like to promote other artists, like in my book. Like in the first issue, the artist was Jeff Manley. I gave him 4 pages to do anything he wanted, and he chose to promote his book, which is Riley the Teenage Bigfoot. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a pretty fun book. But he basically put together a 4-page best of. And I guarantee that anybody who goes through my book, they retain all of their rights, and I pay you a very small amount, $33 per page. But hey, you're getting paid at least,
Yeah. I mean, at that point, it's like, this is what I can afford. Please work with me.
Right.
I think I know that Harvey Picard did that too. Like there were some artists that didn't get paid as much as others because he was tight, and they just were just so happy to work with him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossible. Like nobody's making any money. Okay, so I'm doing it right now. I sort of did my Kickstarter. Put this album together. Chris has been helping me with that. We got all these amazing artists on the album. I've got my books. I put those together. But I'm like, oh, books on their own. I need to, how can I make it more? And I've been like, so I started filming myself drawing it, to make it good for the internet, and then putting it together with the music. And this week, I've sort of finally been getting some of them into a little final form with, just the drawing of it with the music and stuff, and they're looking nice, and the caption and all that. And but then how much? Yeah, how's anybody getting paid? I don't know. I mean, I can offer them a royalty by having it up, like sort of print on, like when they're downloads. I don't know. We'll see. There's no money in it anywhere. I mean, it's like if I can break even at the end of this event by managing to sell some art, some of the original art, maybe. But I mean, at this point, I have to sell a bunch of original art, to cover the costs of like putting on the show and all that and stuff. So, it's like, okay.
At the same time, do you really want that art taking up all that space in your house?
No, I'm having a blowout auction. I'm going to list it all on eBay. I'm going to try it like this. Like 10-day auction starting on the 30th. And
on eBay? Really?
Yeah, I'm doing it that way. Yeah, I'm doing a blowout. So there's nowhere else to do an auction. I've looked into it. There's nowhere else.
Interesting.
I thought that there were like
no, not really, not unless it's something that you're like it's sort of complicated and obscure, and or there's some things for like charity auctions and stuff like that. But eBay's kind of the only one.
Look into comicartfans.com. They have an auction thing there, and like the website is packed full of people wanting to buy art. So
comic art and
if you
fans.
get an account there, comic art fans rather. Yeah.
See.
It's too niche. It's just comics people.
Well, that's true. Like a lot of it is comics, so.
Yeah. But at the same time, it couldn't hurt. No,
I'm doing it this way. I'm trying. This is how it goes, because I can have a QR code. People can come in the gallery. They can like scan it. They can go. They can place a bid on it. So you can see it. I'm not going to list them low. I'm going to list them at the prices, I'm going to list them at a price that I'm happy to sell them for. There'll be a lot of them. I don't expect all of them to sell. If any, I have to sell a few of them, but that's about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. It's not like that. I'll just put them on the walls. But if they're just on the walls, people who are far away can't have an opportunity to have a go at them.
What did you say, James? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, sorry.
If you have any of your art handy, I'd like to see it. I'm not familiar with your work.
Oh, now he's got to go find one.
Everything's all in the other room right now.
We've been preparing for this moment for some
I'll tell you
time.
what. Well, I can do a screen share. Here we go.
Yeah, screen share. Yeah.
Right. What do we look at?
As soon as we get to this chant. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are you reading right now, James?
Well, right now I'm actually reading We Saw Scenery, which I have here. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
We Saw Scenery by Meryl Marco. Now, Meryl Marco, you might not be familiar with her. She actually co-created the Late Night with David Letterman show and the Letterman show before that, which was the morning show. She actually created Stupid Pet Tricks. Well, this is actually like her as a child. Here, I'll bring it back up here.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. But you can get this like pretty cheap online. I don't think.
Wait! You flip there. We Saw Scenery.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We Saw Scenery. Yeah, that's right. Now this is actually her childhood journal, and now where she's like writing about people that she used to be ranting and raving about how wonderful they were, and she doesn't even remember them anymore. It's like it really makes you think like how much did things used to mean to you, which really don't mean anything to you anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think journaling and diaries are important for that.
That's funny. I was just thinking this morning about my high school
she's very
diary,
snarky and sarcastic.
Yeah.
Usual. Pretty fun stuff.
That sounds
Very
great.
cool.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think it's a good thing to keep a diary when you're like for a bit, and I was feeling a bit like down a few years ago, so sort of before the pandemic, I think, and then somebody said, "Oh, you need to sort of write down like three things every day in your in a journal like that were positive each day," and I did that, and then actually that was actually quite helpful, I thought, after doing that for a while. So
yeah, I
Well,
bet
it
there'd be
forces you to
lots of
focus on it.
affirmation.
yeah, just sort of like 3 things today that. I was getting a bit repetitive. Careful what you wish for. Then pandemic came along and all sorts of crazy things.
So this is a new video of yours, Chuck?
Okay, I'll tell you what. Actually, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to share a video, like one of the music videos. Let's see, local video off my folder here. All right. What video should we have? I guess I do. Well, let's see. Okay. Well, where's? I like.
You're going to share the future sound of Urfspace, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to share one of the songs off the album here. I'm just going to share. Let's do electronically enhanced here. That's quite a good one. That's got quite a few overview of work. So let's see. All right, here we go. Electronically enhanced. It's just multiplying over the background.
Okay.
Those were some of the ones I did in
That's cool. Yeah, that music works well.
Yeah, I really like your simplistic style. Everything's so readable. It's really nice.
Thanks. Yeah, so I've sort of gone through this sort of process of where I've been doing sort of quite complicated. I really broke things down, and then sort of Urfspace is very simple. I've sort of been building it up, and I'm getting a little more involved again now. But I had real fun to sort of trying to get really down to the essence of like just an idea.
Yeah. The thing that James doesn't know, though, is that the size of his watercolor brush is like this thick when he's painting with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This one I use a lot. Wait, we go.
Yeah, see? That's what he does all that watercolor with. Yeah. Me, I would have tiny little brushes and like doing little detail. Yeah, but no,
no, for the first pass, and yes, you want to use the big brush for the randomness that it gives you. You have to trust the randomness of the watercolors. That's you can go in and detail and finesse it. And, I use these Pelican watercolors. They're very basic. They're nice and bright.
Here, I'll put you in the main screen so we can look at your
They're a nice bright set. They're sort of 2 layers. Ooh! Oh, swap. They're workable, but big brush and those washers, and sort of working large. I got quite large. I'm gonna go back maybe. I don't know. I've just been playing around a lot with sort of style and really determining, like doing things a little more intentionally, I suppose, rather than. With comics, I was just sort of I did my webcomic Poofle for years, and that again was like, I know what I want to do. I don't know if I can do it, but the only way I'm going to ever do it is if I just do it. So I just did it without being that sort of... And thinking, I probably should not be doing that. I probably should go and just be studying all this art stuff. And it's supposed to get good at the fundamentals. I do it all backwards.
Well, Well, let's talk about perfectionism for a second, because me, I'm trying to reach the point in my own life where perfect is the opposite of done, and I can't
Yes.
have it
Yes.
perfect. So I have to reach a point where I just accept that it's done, right? And
Yes, with comics especially, I think you have to go on a deadline because nobody spends that much time on the page reading it, even if you'd like them to. They don't.
yeah. But what about you, James? Like,
Yeah.
are you just kind of trying to get to a point of turning pages?
Exactly. Like I'd say with each issue, there's a bit of improvement because you have to accept that everybody's going to have to start somewhere and everybody's old work is going to have some flaws. Like look at Todd McFarlane's old work and it says, well, you can say it's all garbage, but if you could look at his old work, you can really see some crappy work.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have the same stuff the same qualities that say something like Spawn had, and even then, some Spawn comics like he had a nose, he looked weird. So by like issue 10, 12, he had his stuff so refined, so nice and beautiful. Like
Yeah, from the repetition of doing it, and you get the support and the reinforcement, and you get better. But then you can, like, I found when I go back now, look at my old work, I'm like, okay, it wasn't as far off as I sort of thought. It was like, there was things that I was sort of striving for that some things and some things you don't know. But the thing is, at the beginning you don't know what you know and what you don't know really.
Sure, it's like you look at your stuff and you're like, why did I have a problem with this? I don't even see a problem anymore.
Yes. Quite often, I'll vary. Some days I'll look at it, I'll go, hey, how did I ever do this? It's great. Other days I'm like, oh, what was I thinking?
Yeah, very relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less critical of my stuff if I have like a week or two away from it, and sometimes that's a strategy I use. I quit something, and then I'll wait a week or two, and I'll revisit it, and then I'm like, yeah, this is fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I noticed that too. Yes, like right when I do it, like often I'm like, oh, what did I do? And then like a day or two later, I'm like, okay, that's all right.
Going back to Todd McFarlane, I remember the joke was that he could draw Spider-Man, but not Peter Parker.
Very well said. And going back to Dave Sim, I don't know if you guys caught this, but there's a lot of Dave Sim in his faces.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Sim. Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, well, he does. He got expressions and stuff. He was interesting.
Right.
He's more the whole package with him. It's because he's doing everything. Yeah.
Well, Dave Sim had a lot of assistants doing work for him. And later in the later issues of Cerebus, he credited them because they were like going to quit on him if he didn't credit them.
Okay, but he's still there. He's still the boss. He's telling them. That's like Michelangelo. They all have assistants, but they're still the maestro.
He was basically assisting the majority of the foreground work, and then I forget the name of his main assistant who did these amazing backgrounds in Cerebus. But he had to have assistants because he had a monthly book that he put out for 300 issues without missing a single deadline.
Oh yeah, and I admire him for that. He said, "I'm going to do 300 issues," and he did 300 fucking issues. I mean,
yeah,
and some of those were bi-weekly too.
Yeah.
It's like that's a sort of triumph of the will.
So, what have you been up to lately, James? Just working on your book?
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about the process I have because so far I found like I can like write like a little guide as to what's going to happen, kind of like the Marvel method, kind of. But then I'll start drawing pages and I'll rearrange them. I'll rearrange panels until I kind of figure out what's really supposed to happen. Like I'd say 2 days ago, I had an epiphany about where the newest issue is going to go. And it's actually taken me quite a while to get this issue out. I'd say I've been drawing for about 2 months, whereas usually I do only take about a month to do an issue. So I'd say I have about at least 5 or 6 more pages I need to draw now. And the more I go along, the more I know exactly what I need to draw. Whereas before it was kind of a general fill in the blanks kind of thing, and then use the word balloons to connect the images and make them all make sense.
Oh, word balloons. Comics glue.
Oh yeah.
Or would that be the gutters?
I don't know.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. Now we're getting into philosophy.
Then my problem with comics is like as soon as I see a gutter, I want to like break it out and like it's like that's what my instinct is. Like I'm very bad. Like but, to be successful, I think you need to respect some of those formalities.
It depends on what you're doing. I think knowing the rules is important to know how to break them. But going, oh, I don't need the rules, I can break them, but not really understanding those rules, you're always going to kind of half-ass it,
Yeah, well, they've come about for a reason. Like when you look at those sort of early, well, they're before. Yes, it's like if you look at the Yellow Kid or those early sort of comics, or Hogarth, where the balloons first start, and they're sort of, there's a sort of language that evolved and then got quite rigid. But then, but then we sort of come to a time where it's sort of time to tear it all apart again. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I guess the person to ask that would be Scott McCloud. Like, where's comics going, man?
Well, music, you have sort of 4/4 time, don't you? Like the bars, and and that makes me think of my Uncle Bill, who was always like, he always thought that musical notation was invented by monks in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And, he thought that they'd done a terrible injustice to music. He'd learned to play by ear from playing piano in the shipyards of Liverpool or whatever. And he thought those medieval monks really messed everything up with their musical, their octaves. And
yeah.
Like, how should they have done it?
It's a complicated story because he was working, like, even in the sort of 80s and 90s, like, working on, like, teaching kids to learn music by ear using electronic and computers right from the beginning of computers. He tried to do that, and I don't really know, but he was sort of super secretive about it because he'd been ripped off at one point, and he was totally paranoid.
I mean, I've tried to learn music several times, like to the extent that I could basically like read it fluently like you would read English, and I always gave up because I was like, why am I doing this? I already know how to put the music together. Mm-hmm. I've already got an ear. I've already got, it seemed like a huge waste of time because I'm not gonna.
Well, this is what music is for. Okay. We know how to play Greensleeves, which is from the 1600s because it was written down.
Yeah. Right. So if you can record it, how would you?
How would you record it? Yeah, exactly.
An audio recording, how do you preserve it, right?
Exactly. And so that's where musical notation came from, is so you would have, Beethoven's symphonies being able to be played all around the world when he was still alive, because you would have people copy down his original notations.
No, that's true. I mean, and that's great that stuff is like preserved.
Yeah, like remember in the 90s when we were all into Gregorian chants for a bit?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, well,
no, I was into it. But yeah, we were all into it. Yeah, and yes,
Enya was into it.
What was it? It was it's that same German guy who does all those things.
That narrows it down.
He's like Yeehaw No Ha, like Boney M. Oh my god, he's a German producer. The famous one is like with their name Milli Vanilli. Was it Milli Vanilli? And they got really in trouble for lip syncing over here. Everyone was like, "Oh, they're lip syncing," but that's just this same German producer who, like, he has all various sort of dancers and stuff front his act, but it's really just him.
Yeah, I know who you mean, but I don't know his name.
Yeah. You don't know his name. He's like that, but you know all his different songs and musics as
but sort of I know Boney M, but I know Milli Vanilli, so
yeah. They got like famous, like, oh my god, they're sort of lip syncing, but yeah, that was the whole. They were just his latest thing.
Right, exactly.
You're not talking about Mutt Lang, are you?
Is that right? I don't know. It doesn't sound right. No.
I'm just looking him up. He's the only German producer that I really know, but I don't think he worked with Milli Vanilli.
See, you need to Google Milli Vanilli, German producer, music.
I did, but Milli Vanilli's not showing up.
Or Boney M, or
Boney M.
Yeah,
Boney M.
Yeah, Boney M was one of his first things.
They're wiped from the internet. No one shall remember Milli Vanilli.
I felt bad for those guys. Like, I watched the documentary. I mean, it was a VH1 documentary, so it's probably 50% true. But I kind of felt bad for them.
Yeah, no, you should feel bad for them. They were like a couple of dancers. You know, he's like, oh, you know, I need you to front my latest thing. This one got popular. We'll do a few more. Oh, you're lip syncing. Well.
Then,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was back when like lip syncing could wreck your career. Now
Well,
it's like nobody cares, I think.
I don't know. Miley Cyrus was caught lip syncing on SNL, and people kind of, you know.
It was
When was
Ashley
that?
Simpson, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ashley Simpson, not
Right.
Miley
Yeah, that was
Cyrus.
the 90s though, wasn't it? That was still like
2000s.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, people don't like being lied to, I guess.
yeah.
No,
They
okay,
feel
but
like
you know, the point is that you're sort of missing who the artist is. They aren't the artist. You know, the artist is the German guy.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that they're the face and he's the hands.
Yeah. They're, you know, yeah, exactly. You know, he's the maestro. He's doing, you know, he's got all these different things. Yeah, yeah. And then some of them, you know, yeah, he does a few like with that, and then you know he sort of moves on to the next thing.
So okay, so going back to our guest.
Oh, Frank Farian.
Frank
Oh.
Farian, yes.
Frank
Going
Farian,
back to our
sorry.
guest.
Sorry.
What are your plans for Cactus in the future?
Well, the next issue, I'm wrapping up the first storyline, which was them searching for Princess Popo, who is a illiterate, drunken, drug-addled princess who likes to rock and roll, who likes to party a lot every night and every day. And
She sounds good. I'd like to be
Well,
her.
well, the thing is, you've heard this from the frog guy, who is a drug-addled loser. And
Oh yeah, I
he's-
identify with him. Yes.
yeah, well, he's very questionable. How much is really like true about Popo, and how much is him misinterpreting everything around him? So
Yes, that
that's
sounds.
gonna
Oh, yes,
wrap up.
so good. Yes. One of my first characters was Frog, Ferdinand the Frog. He was my sort of autobiographical character I did early on. Yeah.
Well, I didn't rip you off, but there is a frog.
No, well, there's a good tradition of frog characters. You know, well,
Oh, yeah.
obviously Kermit. You know, whatever. Yeah, the Frog Prince. Yeah, and my board game Legitimacy, I had a Frog Prince. You know, yeah. So that was kind of Ferdinand popping up again. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Pepe. There's also
I'm just
Pepe
kidding,
the
but
Frog now.
one of my friends actually did a comic book about the same time as me that featured a balloon and a cactus, and it was total coincidence.
Yes.
And they totally went a whole different direction, but it was just pretty funny.
That is
Well,
Yeah.
I saw you
That's
drawing.
funny.
I saw you drawing balloons and cactuses, though, or cacti. Was that for him or for
No,
them?
no, I don't think so. That was probably me working on my own thing.
Well, you were talking about it before, and you were making me think there's a sort of like with the Bigfoot, the young Bigfoot thing. There's a sort of whole trend of like North Woods comics or something. People like doing things. You know, I don't know where it goes back to. I mean, you could go back to Black Hole or something, I suppose. But
Perhaps.
but there,
Well,
I
yeah,
see a lot of sort of lumberjacks and Bigfoots and things like that. There's a whole
What was
kind of
that
genre of
series?
that.
What was
Pacific
that
Northwest.
series
Maybe there's just a lot of
about that?
people in Pacific Northwest like making comics.
Do you guys know that series, the animated series? It's probably from the 2000s, and it's northwest, like Bigfoot's. Shit. It's an animated series. It was probably on. I mean, it must have been on some network. No.
No.
I
Okay.
don't
No,
know.
you're
Yeah.
No,
not
but yeah,
giving
that-
us enough clues.
It's a genre. It's like
Yeah,
Northwest.
Well,
I
it's,
don't know what-
it's
I don't
the
know what you
biggest
call it.
one. That's the clue. That's the only
Northwestern.
clue I can give you.
Northwestern comics. I don't know. Can we name this genre, please?
Northern exposure.
Northern
Oh yeah. I mean, that's,
Northern Exposure. That was way up in Alaska, though.
That's true.
So,
I did like that. That was popular. We had that in England. I quite like that, Northern Exposure.
Oh yeah,
man,
that was fun.
in Alaska, they just had a huge flood because they had a glacier melt away, and you know the glacier broke, and
Oh.
so all the water that was being held behind the glacier in Juneau just taking out homes along the riverbanks, and you know the stuff on the news where you just see the homes going. Boom.
Yeah, it's exponential, folks. I mean,
Gravity
we're all tap
Falls.
dancing and singing away here, but there's not much else we can do.
Gravity
We got
Falls,
about. Lovelock says we got about 5 years left. Or he said 20 years, 15 years ago. He said we had about 20 years left to enjoy ourselves. Then it was all going to hell. So I think we passed the points of being able to stop it. So
Well, yeah, things went to hell, but it was not what he expected.
bit reality there.
Well,
Sad dose
when-
of reality. Sorry, everybody.
Okay,
When-
can I loop back with this? It's Gravity Falls. Anybody?
Gravity Falls. Oh yeah, the kids like that
I
a
was
lot.
thinking
Yes.
about that, but I thought you were talking
Into
about
it, yeah.
like an adult show.
It's
Yeah.
I guess it is for kids, but it's pretty funny. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I enjoy watching this.
Yeah,
I missed that one,
it's
yeah.
written very well.
Yeah.
I have a friend who he and we both admit that we're adults who like cartoons, and so we will talk with each other about cartoons and and
So
talk
hard.
about
It was so hard to do that.
it is and so to have an adult friend who it's like, hey, did you see Over the Garden Wall yet? No, I haven't. Have you seen
Yeah.
Gravity Falls
Yeah.
yet? No, I haven't.
I'm gonna shame you now.
Yeah, and so I introduced him
Yeah.
to Adventure Time, and he introduced me to Gravity Falls.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. Well, you both did well out of that. Yes, that's both good shows. Yeah, I didn't see Gravity Falls like Sam. I watched a few when Sam was young. That was a good excuse. Yeah, Tina's not much into cartoons. Tina's like, yeah.
There's a whole group of adults that
She'll watch
won't
some anime
watch
if I can quick-
cartoons, even if they're adult cartoons. I've had other adults tell me that they don't like cartoons, that they don't watch them. They, like as a category. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're missing out, man. There's some great. I mean, what about
Love,
Rick
Death,
and
and
Morty?
Robots.
What about The Simpsons? What about
Love, Death, and
Yeah.
Robots is amazing on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's dark. That's definitely adult
Yeah.
territory. But yeah, I've watched all of them.
Well, it's just sort of the trouble is cartoons are very mind bending and mind expanding and mind deranging, and powers that be don't want you like in cartoons. They'll put a fatwa on you. And say you're making evil drawings that are corrupting the minds of the young, and they're right. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. They're very powerful and dangerous. I've like all my life I've been going too far. I cross the line all the time. I'm sorry to say, James. That's why, I'm not. I don't stay in the rules. I'm prone to go off on a rant and misogynistic rants.
I wanted to see what.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can't help it. I always do something
what was
wrong.
that kind of
I apologise. And I
thing?
feel sorry. But, there's something transgressive about making comics and pissing people
Takes
off.
a real man to admit it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
I
any
don't
of
want to
that.
upset anybody. I don't really want to upset anybody.
I mean, as a woman, it's hard for me to support Dave Sin because of the awful shit that he said about like people like me in particular.
What did he say? I mean, I haven't seen any of this stuff.
So his issues. He would have, the artwork in the front, and in the back, he would have like a letters area where he would communicate with his fans, and then he had like a rant page where he would
This
just
was before the
write
internet, though.
about he would just write about whatever, but on the rant page, he talked about how like women were trying to take over the world, the Jews controlled the world.
Well, they
like,
are.
Just all the bad thoughts he was putting down on paper. That like you really need a filter for that stuff. And
Yes, but the trouble is, if you put the filter on, you filter out some good stuff. I don't know, it's complicated. Like Crumb also has gotten the same trouble. But he's like, he's sort of like, I don't avert my eyes, and if I'm drawing it, it's because it's in my mind. And if it's in my mind, that's because the culture's put it there.
Isn't this just kind of like you go to the grocery store and you just don't buy the stuff that you don't want to eat? I mean, do you know what I mean?
But it's too powerful. Like it's too powerful. Like it's too easy for a kid to see it and have their mind totally warped.
I don't know. It's just it's just people are like, man, Dave says he's so great. He's so great, And I picked up a book and read the back, and it was basically like, women are evil, and it's like, wow, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, he would go into very deep reasons as to why he's reached the same conclusions that I would never reach with the same information.
Yeah, it was sort of the depth of his his insistence.
All I know is
and his relentlessness about it, doubling down.
I want to know about his failed personal relationships with
No, he went through an awful divorce, and that definitely influenced his writing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And he had a character in there, so yes, and he's obviously writing female characters and stuff. I don't really know enough about that actual content because I didn't read that far of theirs. Well, I mean, it put me off. I mean, the trouble is when you hear stuff like that, I'm like, I guess I don't really know if I really want to push through this. Yeah.
Well, the book the book evolved over time. It started out as kind of a funny book, and then it got serious. And Websnark remarked on this when he was writing about webcomics, about how you'll have funny books that take the serious tone and then they never regain their funny tone again, and then they're serious. And so in Cerebus's case, he never really regained that funny tone again, but he acknowledged the fact that he had changed it by having the sword come back to Cerebus after he'd become a politician. And so when the sword came back to him, it reminded him of where he'd been, what he'd come through, everything like that. And then he was a warrior again, but he was a changed warrior, and it was a changed book.
It was kind of an acknowledgement that he could never go back again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I read it. It's a good book. I'm not going to deny that. And I believe that things like this, they don't destroy the work. They just complicate it.
Right.
But at the same time, it put a bad taste in my mouth.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, reading about how I'm awful and I'm ruining the comics industry and the world at large.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm there. I am. I'm like 15, going like, what? How am I ruining the comics industry?
Yeah, it's like I'm drawing funny books. I'm trying to be funny.
Yeah. But I was literally like 15. I was still in high school, and it was like, why? Because I read comics. Like,
my daughter's age.
Now, you had said that you had started as an intern at age 13 at Wildstorm, is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I started going to
try and get us to stop.
I started going to San Diego Comic-Con when I was like 6 years old, and so a lot of the people kind of saw me grow up a lot. And so when I was about 12 or 13, I brought a portfolio, and I'm going to draw a comic book someday. And again, I've been getting signatures and asking questions at panels and stuff for all this time, and they kind of knew me. And so Jim's like, well, our studio's in La Jolla. And I'm like, I'm in, Wildomar. I'm in Riverside County. It's right next door. And so he's like, okay, you can come down. We'll have you come down one day a week. And, basically what I was doing was cleaning up the studio, vacuuming, dusting stuff. They occasionally let me answer phones, but my mom would drive me there, and then she would go shopping for a couple hours or so, and then come and pick me back up. And so I did this starting out one day a week. And then when I ended there at the age of about 15 or so, I was going down there about 3 days a week. And you have to understand, this was like an hour and a half drive away.
Right.
And I'm like, they're right next door. They weren't.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so, I got to meet, Scott Williams and Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell before he was J. Scott Campbell. And yeah.
Did you get to meet Richard or Richard?
Oh, Richard Friend. Richard Friend, he would come into the office to drop pages. He lived in Orange County.
Right.
And so he would drop off pages. Same thing with like Dan Fraga. Dan Fraga was working with Extreme Studios at the time, but they had like cross promotion stuff between all the different Image books at the time. And so I got to meet Dan Fraga because he was bringing artwork for the cross promotion from the Extreme Studios up in Orange County.
Right.
And
So you were there busy ruining comics when you read about women ruining comics.
I guess I was. I guess I was. But, really what I was doing was like mopping the bathroom floor at Wildstorm so that, they didn't.
Comics are better if they're done with dirty bathrooms. It motivates the artists, Sarah.
It motivates them. It makes them want to hire maids.
Well, that's cool. Did you get any tips from anybody, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was there every day, and when there wasn't anything to do, I would pull out my own stuff, and I'd be working on my own stuff, and so they would come over all the time and be like, oh yeah, this is how you put a page together. And then I told you about off camera about when Jeff Campbell came to portfolio in one hand and suitcase in the other. I made it. After the talent search and stuff like that, he would be sitting there, and Jim Lee would be sitting next to him, teaching him how to do comics, right? Like, okay, you do all your your pages at once. You lay them all out at once. Do all your hands. They all look the same. All your faces. They all
wait. Don't skip through the Jim Lee tips. Wait, I want to hear these. Wait, what are they?
Well, there's so many of them.
Okay.
So
that's another show. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's another show. But he would do this, and the way that Campbell thought, the way that his brain worked, is he would finish one panel at a time, and then he would move on to the next panel, which is a very slow way of doing things. It's actually the way I draw. I can't be mad at him, but like it's a very slow way of doing things. And Jim was trying to teach him how to do a monthly book. And kind of like how when we had Dean Haspiel and he said it's about turning pages, Campbell wasn't about that. He was about the art. And so that's why now he just does covers and posters.
Yeah. Then you can become a cover artist. Yes. There's a sort of speed and quickness thing. Yes. Jim Lee, I saw him do a live draw at Comic-Con. He was great. He really, it was packed house, and everyone was eager to see him, and he did perform really well. I don't know. And I don't know. He made it look very easy, but
he makes it look like. Here's the interesting thing about Jim Lee is he's a failed doctor. He was in medical school when he quit to draw comic books.
Okay, but he said he wanted to be good at comics, and he said he was like an athlete, and he trained like an athlete. He saw the athletes at school like going around, and so he decided to be like the athlete. But obviously, he's being motivated to be a doctor there. I didn't know that though. So
his parents wanted him to be a doctor.
Yeah, so
so they paid for medical school and stuff, but he didn't want to be a doctor, and so he quit medical school, and basically, became the world's most famous comic book artist living.
Must have been a hard talk.
I gotta say, I think that Wildstorm is a very special thing. I think of it as an awesome training ground for some fantastic artists. I think that the industry is the better for that period of time.
Mm-hmm. I kind of felt sad when Wildstorm sold themselves to DC.
Right.
And it's like I watched Batman Flashpoint. I think it's Flashpoint. It was the Bruce Timm Flash movie where they basically did the same story that they did in the live action movie, but better. And during that they had Grifter in one of the alternate dimensions, and it's like, what? You're not supposed to be here. You're fighting. I forget the name of the critters they were fighting. It began with a D. The aliens.
Daemonites.
Thank you. Yes, You're supposed to be fighting Daemonites. And instead they were like fighting Justice League villains.
Yeah, I'll look at the new Wildstorm comics like Wildcats, and there'll be like Batman or all these DC characters, and I totally lose interest.
Yeah, it's like, no, that they're supposed to be their own little world in their own little thing,
Right.
And it was, also don't forget that Image was trying to be edgy back in the day.
Right.
And so, the fact that Voodoo was an exotic dancer, I remember was discussed on national television.
Right.
About are comic books corrupting the youth? Look at this character. And they would do the double page spread from the swimsuit issue where it was drawn by Campbell of Voodoo, sitting there doing this, and she's hardly wearing anything because she's in her exotic dancing outfit, right? And they're like, is this good for kids? And Jim Lee's sitting there going like, that's not for kids. Maybe teenagers, but that's not for children. That's for adults that don't mind reading the word fuck in a book. Yeah, I remember that was a big deal too, that they weren't part of the comics code. They could have the F word.
Yeah, is there a comics code?
Anymore? Is there a comics code?
I mean, there was a code for movies for sure.
There was a comics code was introduced after there was all the EC horror comics, and there was a big sort of scare, and William Gaines, the publisher, was sort of brought up in front of Congress, and you know, it was sort of like somewhat along with like McCarthyism and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, but it was thought that comics were corrupting the kids. There was a book written, Seduction of the Innocent. Some doctor had written that, like, you know, this book went around, you know.
Worthram.
Yes, and so Comics Code was introduced, and you weren't allowed to do any of the more horrible sort of things. And William Gaines then changed to doing Mad Magazine, basically.
What year was that?
1950s.
55.
1960s.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, my friend Jerk Comics, you might be familiar with his channel. We do a show together, but anyways, he actually recited the audiobook of Seduction of the Innocent for his channel. So if you're actually interested in hearing it, check him out. And he actually has... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, because not that interested, because isn't it all discredited bullshit?
Of course, but it's still part of history, and it's worth hearing the history.
It's worth hearing it. Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is those arguments have been debunked, right? So when they rise up again, you can, you know, take care of them.
Right, and there is something.
It is Seduction of the Innocent. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Right, but I wanted to say my friend has actually worked on my books. He actually wrote an essay for the Christmas issue about Jack Kirby, and Dave Sims said it was the best article about Jack Kirby he's ever read in his life. So that's pretty amazing. Like this guy is something special.
Yeah, it just depends on like where you want to go with it, though. You know, it's
right.
like it's. I'm trying to think like, with Seduction of the Innocent, the bad thing, the terrible thing about it is that comics were starting to approach art, and it retarded that development, you know, and then comics aren't art anymore, you know, they're just for kids for the longest period of time. And it wasn't really, I'd say, until I mean, I guess you could argue underground comics were still continuing that push towards art, but in mainstream comics, I would argue it wasn't really until the 80s that we started to see the main industry come around to art. Europe, on the other hand, they just continue going, and comics in Europe are just amazing now. Like, they're definitely art. But here in the United States, they were always just seen as a pop medium.
Same as in Britain. Same as in Britain. They're seen comics are for kids sort of thing. You know, the comics in Britain and the USA, that scene is sort of generally very similar, I would say, you know, compared to how it is, like, say, in Europe or Asia or Japan, you know, with all the anime and stuff and the mangas.
I'd say the best artist of the 50s was Bernard Krigstein, who did Master Race for EC Comics, but nobody noticed it at the time, but it's one of the best comics, like, you'll ever read, and it's an 8-page story.
Yeah, I have that. I have the artist edition of some of the best EC books ever.
Yeah,
and so it's the original scans of that page. So you see the little notes on the side, which is interesting because it's a silent story. But now I have like little notes on the side of like what they were planning and what they were doing, and you can.
What is it called? Master Race? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a guy gets pushed into a train. Yeah.
Well, a guy, but the guy happens to be a former Nazi, and the guy who pushes him happens to be a Jew from the concentration camps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's very adult. That tells you, that gives you a hint at where EC could have went if not for the nonsense of the Kefauver hearings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Nazis here. They didn't like people, like, you know, exposing them.
Well, but that was the point of the story, is that there were a lot of Nazis here.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why they're suppressed.
Turns out Nazis are really great at making rockets, and we really like rockets, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, and the Hitlers. I mean, the Hitler family here somewhere. They moved over here. They're somewhere in the northeast, I believe.
They changed their name.
But they changed their name.
Well, maybe they didn't though, because like no one would believe you. If you said my name's Hitler, they'd never. They'd assume that you couldn't be related. Otherwise, you would have changed your name.
Well, I mean, it's not really there. I mean, you know, how much can you blame somebody with the last name of Hitler these days? I mean, I'm not responsible for what my great grandfather did, am I?
No,
Yeah.
but I'm sure
Well-
if your family would have felt that shame for a long time.
How much genocide did he do?
Yeah.
And just imagine every single conversation after your name is mentioned is what? Well, they
Great
start talking
ice-
about Hitler. Like
Great
I was born
icebreaker.
7777.
Oh yeah, the
sure,
seventh
I
son
was
of the
born
seventh son. Their
7777.
sins will be vested upon. So yeah. That's quite a lot. That's a long time actually. Seventh
But
son
it's
of a
like,
seventh
think about
son is a
every
really fucking long
conversation.
time.
If my last name was Hitler, I think it'd be a great conversation starter, and I'd have some frequently asked questions. Like I just carry my FAQs with me, to pass out to people.
Yeah, I have a little card to hand out.
So like the actor that plays Biff, how he has like that card that he hands to people that's like, hey, don't call me Biff. And yes, Michael J. Fox was a really nice guy. And, it's just all the
Oh, he had it on a,
there's
he had it,
just
he had it on a
questions.
card. Oh.
Yeah, he had it on a card and he handed it out
yeah.
to people.
Yeah, he was
great.
too good at his job, and then everyone hates.
Well, Steve Martin, the actor Steve Martin, he refuses to give out autographs. So if you go up and ask him for one, he'll pull out a card that says, "This is a card to certify that I have met Steve Martin."
Yeah.
That's great. I'm gonna start a business where I just print those up and buy them online.
Yeah, and then you just sell them,
Yeah.
Here, anybody can certify that they've met Steve Martin, whether they have or not.
It's diabolical.
It's the NFTs of meeting celebrities. You have you met them? I don't
What
know.
happens to NFTs? Are they still around or are they dead now?
I don't know, but I know that ChatGPT is going bankrupt.
Really?
How is it? How could it go bankrupt? I mean, like what?
Because
Giving it away for free, basically.
well, they have companies that are paying them to use ChatGPT, right? And then a certain amount of the user basis is paying them, right? Well, the user basis and the companies that are using them has dropped off dramatically. So they're not getting the same revenue that they were, 3 months ago. So they're going bankrupt.
It seems like all the money would have gone into it before it was even released to the public, like the development stage, and now it'd be like
they rushed the development stage.
I mean, I can understand why customers are dropping off, because I mean, there's a whole lot of bullshit in that thing from what my own experience. Like,
yeah,
if I owned a business, I wouldn't want to trust it.
Yeah,
to do
and
things.
Well, that's just it, is they had sold it to all these users and all these different companies as being able to do one thing when it's really doing another. It's a predictive text generator, right? And that means that it comes up with the most likely word next, but maybe not the obvious word next, right? And so that's why it comes up with bullshit. But what they were basically selling it as is a thinking machine. And it's not thinking. Does that?
No. I totally get what you're saying there. Like,
yeah,
right. Like they sold it as something. It's actually not quite as advanced as it was pitched. I mean, that's the truth that I got to after playing around with it for about an hour.
What about you, James? What's your opinions on AI and the AI revolution?
I don't really have one because it doesn't really affect my life. So I just live and let live,
Yeah, I mean, I used it a bit on on putting the captions in on my books there, because there were bits where I need a whole lot of text here. I don't. So I would play around with it a bit and got it to do some funny, made it jump through some hoops and made it funnier, But it's because it sort of wanted to give you, it just wants to give you a very sort of generic response to everything. So you can have some good fun with it, but yeah, I don't know. And I had it predict the rise of the robots and stuff like that, and
you did.
Yes, yeah, I remember I did that one, C-3PO'd, and I said I got ChatGPT to sort of say, tell us how the robots are going to take over the Earth or something, and it gave me a pretty good story about that, a little caption,
Yeah, he read it to us on air.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, my brain's
several times,
failing.
I think.
Several
So
times.
you just have no opinion of it? You don't see, like it destroying jobs or beneficial for humanity or anything. You're the neutral in Futurama going, I feel nothing.
Basically, I think that if you're able to have your job taken away from you, you didn't deserve your job in the first place. You have to put your heart and your soul into your art. I have no fear that a machine will reproduce Cactus and Papa Balloon, because I put it all in there, and I think that it's very important to not just make something that can have a computer plug in the words. You have to have the heart. It's like a drum machine, you know. It's not going to replace a real artist. Like a Keith Moon would never have been replaced by a drum machine.
Yeah.
Not until now.
Well, that is true. In fact, it probably has happened. I'm sure you can find some videos online. So
it's really hard to program drums to make them sound like a human. Actually, as a person, I've spent hours and hours trying to do that exact thing, and It's really tough. And
and it's like watercolors. You can spend forever trying to develop an algorithm that will beautifully recreate watercolors. But the fact is that watercolors will give you more beautiful effects every time.
Chuck was eating up everything you just said, James.
I think, it's the truth. I mean, these things are tools. It's like photography. Photography, was that the death of art, or was it just made more art? It changed art. Like art, the job of the artist was no longer like faithfully recording the world so that someone could see it. So it became we moved more into this sort of other realm. And then the reason they trained AI to do art, because it's the hardest thing. I had a good interaction with my doctor when I got a bit of a concussion, and I had to sort of go in, and I saw a guy, and he was normally in the AR, but he was sort of doing the injury clinic, and he asked me what I did, and I was working on the Goodman game stuff, and I sort of told him, he goes, like digital or analog? I was like, analog. He goes, oh, you're the last of a dying breed. I'm like, wow. Ouch. I was like, well, maybe, but I said, you should probably be watching out for your job too, because, over a decade ago, I was in Denmark and they were using Watson. There was a sort of friend of the family, and they'd been working with the Danish government with using Watson, and they were like diagnosing. He said Watson was better at diagnosing patients on the phone than doctors with heart conditions at that point. The Watson could tell better than a doctor could just from the phone diagnosis. So they're working on that, and the reason they've trained it on art is it's one of the harder things to tell it to do. Relatively diagnosing patients or like sorting out legal crap or managing finances, doing that, like most managerial jobs and things. Actually, it's going to do those jobs very simply. So, but he said, they'll always find something for me to do. And he's right, because, he's an ER doctor. So, they're going to be a while before the computers can really handle those tricky messes that...
That's true. And ER doctor's kind of like a plumber or an electrician or somebody like that. Like, it's manual and it's very case by case,
I just thought of an example of something that machines can do that humans can't, and it's called spinner art.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it looks really great, but who gives a shit? Who really wants to own that?
Spinner
art. What did you call it? Spinner art?
Yeah, they used to do that at the fair when I was a kid.
Oh, like a sort of spirograph sort of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, they would pour paint on it, and then they'd spin it, and the paint would go like this. It's very similar to kind of the pour paint art that you have now, only instead of it being like you're moving the canvas like this to move the paint around, you literally are just spinning it, and it spins out. Right, I remember that. I had one of those.
Who beyond a 12-year-old would want that?
Yeah, well, Jackson Pollock got away with it. He was like, he but no one else could get away with it. Like, he was the only one we were going to let him get away with it.
Here's my thoughts on Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock is a brilliant artist, but his audience is one person, himself.
I don't know who buys Jackson Pollock. I mean, he made a name for himself, so what can you say? I mean, him and Rothko. I'm a little bit like, what, really?
Yeah. I went
to school with Jackson Pollock's granddaughter.
Oh wow.
And she would bring it up in conversation every chance she could. That was her grandfather.
That's got to be annoying.
Yeah, like seriously, like she would just, it didn't matter what the subject was, it would just steer around to the fact that her grandfather was Jackson Pollock.
Right.
And it's just like, at the point people are just like, we don't care.
Well, you can turn that back on her next time she spills the coffee or something. You made a Jackson.
No, she was in the design program. I don't really. I didn't really talk to her very much, but yeah, I had a couple classes with her, and she would just be like, "Well, my grandfather, blah blah blah."
You should cash in on that. I mean, like, if your grandfather is Jackson Pollock, you can actually, go into making splatter paintings, which is a very fun thing to do, very enjoyable activity, and you'll have some credibility because you'll say, "I'm Jackson Pollock's granddaughter." They go, "Wow, a female Jackson Pollock, aren't we lucky?"
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Then you look at somebody like Lucian Freud, who is actually a very talented artist, whose grandfather was Sigmund Freud,
Oh yeah, the Freuds, and Emma Freud, who's I think maybe Lucian Freud's daughter or something. She's also she was a popular television presenter in Britain.
Right,
And
it's
does
like
lots of
go
other
out
things
and
too,
achieve something,
Yeah, they're a bright family, those Freuds. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't all of his stuff being discredited now, or is it not? I thought Freud would kind of peaked, and now it's being torn apart.
Well, he started it, or whatever. Yeah, so I mean, I think people are prepared to accept he didn't get it all figured out, and yeah, some people say, "Oh, he was totally a scam." But,
He's just the first
maybe
guy to think that way, and then people have since advanced his thoughts or discredited his thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he also wrote more essays on the benefits of cocaine than he did on psychology. So, a little discrediting there, probably okay.
Sure.
He might have been a little biased.
Oh my God! Well, talking of that, we just watched that documentary. I'm not talking a drama thing about the Sackler family that they have on Netflix, The Painkillers, with Matthew Broderick as Sackler. Oh, that was juicy. Oh my God, they really ripped them.
There was another one with Michael Keaton. That's really
Dope
good.
Sick. Yeah,
Dope Sick. That's really good.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were pretty hard on him there too. But I feel like the new one is more dramatic.
It's more dramatic. It sort of starts off saying the people who are involved sort of come on and say, this is fictionalized, but what's not fictionalized was the death of my child, sort of thing. So that sort of starts every episode, but they sort of, they sort of were really kind of mocking the Sacklers quite a lot and really kind of being very disrespectful to them as they deserve. But they were also showing how horrible. And they focused on this one poor family, and every time this family came on, you were like, oh my God, what terrible thing is going to happen to them.
Did they talk about the labeling at the FDA, that thing?
Yes. Oh, yes. The labeling at the FDA. Yes, that was a big. That was sort of a black box. There was a guy who was saying no. They were trying everything. They took him away for a weekend. Then he said yes, and that's all we know.
They took him away. Did they take him away to Epstein's Island? Where did they take him away to?
Yeah, we don't know. That's not known.
I want to be in the position that somebody says, "Hey, why don't you come to my private island for the weekend?" Well, I try to convince you of something.
So how's our guest doing, James? How are you doing here? How are you doing? How are you doing for time? I mean, we normally go for a little while, but just like to check in with the guests, make sure they're not.
I'm enjoying the conversation. Whatever you guys, however long you need to go, I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry, we should probably be bringing it back to you more often.
Yeah, well, we'll tend to go off into sort of digressions. Health is a sort of side topic of the show. It's a side topic. So health is an issue for artists. I have my health. I learned a lot about RSI. I went through bad RSI at one point in my life and went through all that. You're going through it now with your stroke and all this. There's very tendency for doctors. They can make money by giving us some surgeries or a pill. But really, the things we need to do to stay healthy are the sort of difficult things that we have to do.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to make the choices you don't want to. I'm deaf in this ear, but I can kind of hear some sounds now, but I can't make out words or anything. And I'm legally blind. I have to really get up close to read the screen.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
But I love to focus on my art. When I'm drawing, that's when I feel alive. I just love to just create.
Yeah. Do you have a link to a website that I can show?
Sure. www.outstanding-achievement.com.
Okay, let me do this. Outstanding achievement.
Right. With a dash in between the words.
Let's see.
Achievement.
Oh, well, I haven't been. Oh my God, we've been ignoring the comments again. People are like saying things, and we're not very good at responding to them.
We need to.
I heard that the young people really like it when they're comments and when you respond to the comments. Here's Roger Crownover. Oh yeah, hello. I met him the other day at the Draw and Chill. Hi. Oh, cheers, Roger.
Draw and Chill?
We had a Cartoon Art Museum Draw and Chill on Sunday. They do it the second Sunday of every month, and it's sort of open to anybody who wants to go along and have a draw. There's usually a handful of people. I try and go. I have my D&D groups also, sort of every other Sunday. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hello. Let's have a little sideshow. Yes, please.
So this is the Papa Balloon and Cactus comic.
Now these covers were by Sam J. Royale. I got to give him credit. He also designed the logo for the book.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, and there's your Dave Sim cover.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, Froggy sticker.
Yeah.
Cactus sticker. Do you have a Facebook page for this one? You do, don't you?
I have a group called Outstanding Achievement in the field of excellence, which is a Simpsons quote. If anyone's curious, where I came from.
Wait, it's a Simpsons quote?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And what is it again? Outstanding achievement.
Outstanding achievement in the field of excellence. It was an award created by Mr. Burns to prevent a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Well, wait. How does it prevent a lawsuit? Does he get the award and then he doesn't get sued?
Basically, Homer has been rendered sterile because he's been around radiation so long. So instead of having to pay him millions of dollars, he gives him a fake award. It's worth watching it. The clip. Look up Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Excellence, and you'll get a good chuckle.
Oh, I'm going to.
Oh, nice. We're getting some live drawing here. Good. Yeah. So you've been doing that too. That's you.
Is it? I can't really see him with my bad eyes.
No, this is Jerome Cabot.
Okay.
Even at 10. It's something that was posted though to your group.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, there's some McFarlane. There's Spider-Man, but not Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing that Loomis said. Loomis said the key to success in the American illustration market is being able to draw the human head.
Yes. If you can't draw the human head, what are you even doing?
Well, I'm not very good at heads myself.
I mean, is there a trick to it? I thought
it's just you got to be able to draw a good head and a good face. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's the truth.
That's kind of
in
like
one way or another.
Thing people learn how to draw, right? You draw a circle and then you put some. It's like, isn't that the first thing people learn how to draw? I feel like.
Well, part of yes, like I sort of joined the pareidolia group. I started learning more about pareidolia. I had a friend who was like into it, and he would do it all the time, and I didn't really think about it much until more recently. And I met another guy in an elevator who was going on about it. But pareidolia is seeing faces in things, and there's several groups. I'm on Facebook. I'm in Facebook, but. You sort of have to train your mind in a way because yes, you can once you start doing it, you can see a face in everything all around all the time, and a bit of it is sort of recognizing the mark that you've made for what it is. Where's the face? So
that's pareidolia.
It's pareidolia. Yes,
and you see faces in things.
Seeing faces in things.
I mean, it's an interesting concept to me because I feel like. When you are looking for something and you look hard enough and long enough, you will find it whether it's there or not.
Yes, exactly. It is. And you will find a face in things, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything to make faces. Like cartoon is very simple. Like basically, two eyes and a mouth and you've got a face, a circle, like a smiley face or whatever. That smiley face, like an emoji face, that can convey every emotion very sort of simply. How you do the eyes, you do eye dots, but the problem with eye dots is it's a bit hard to look left and right. So it's better to have a circle. Like with the circle, you've got a little more range of emotion, but you really just need a circle and a dot and a line.
No,
you
no.
can do
If
every
you have
motion.
eye dots, how you get them to look left and right is you do a line for the top of the eye, and then you put the
Yeah,
dot
okay.
somewhere
You can make them
along
like
the
a little
line.
inverted comma or something to go sideways, but
Yeah.
you can't do quite as much with dot eyes as you can with the round with the pupil. With a round with the pupil, you can get the full range of emotion.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But just a dot is quite good for a more calm. It's a little more sort of like a calm. But those people, they'll never really go pop-eyed.
Well, look
Well,
at
they could do,
look at,
or you can always suddenly put pop-eyes on them if you want. Yeah.
but look at Charles Schultz, who draws a very basic eye, but it's a very emotional comic.
Yeah.
But the characters themselves are not that emotional. They remain. They're really sort of quite. I mean, sometimes they do. Oh, yeah, okay, they'll go. Oh,
Well, I'd say
whatever.
they're
They
more
live
complex
yeah.
than you imagine. Like they're very neurotic characters.
Yeah, I mean, then there's a lot in the line. Yes, and he shows you that you can do it perfectly well with like dot eyes, I guess. Yes, all right. But I still think there are still some limitations. It's a choice. It's a little more calm. It's a little more hidden to do dot eyes. Little round eyes are a little more sort of in your face exposed, I suppose. Yes.
Right. Well, and also look at anime, but in that case, they're not really expressing very much besides like love.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Then the eyes sort of go big and ooh, and they fill up with they go watery, and
Right.
they do all these sort of different things in anime, and the lines coming in around the body or the figure they're moving. They've got their own language. That's
Oh, for sure.
their language is even more well defined, really.
That's called animata. I learned
Yeah.
that from you, Chuck.
Yeah, I learned. Okay, Emanada was Beetle Bailey. Mort Walker, I believe, came up with that term.
Yeah.
According to the source I said, that Emanata are all the little things that come out of your characters that aren't really there.
Yeah.
Ironically,
sweat
his
beads.
main character doesn't have eyes. Beetle
Yeah.
Bailey.
Yes.
is-
Oh, yes. So Beetle Bailey's got like,
character.
he's a Judge Dredd. You can do it in a comics. Beetle Bailey. Yeah, you can never take that helmet off in a comic character. They always want to for a movie because who wants to have that? Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, you can. Yeah, but Beetle Bailey.
Not Carl Urban. Carl
Yeah.
Urban kept that helmet on like a good Judge Dredd.
Yeah, Carl Urban was great. He kept the helmet on. But also, like Pupil, I did him with like glasses that always had reflections, and there would maybe some be a sort of hint for Pupil. I might do it like a sort of little round dot or something, or it would be. I really didn't do it on him. And then Bish did have dot eyes, and then Pedwin had like round eyes. So I was doing them all. Some of them had dot, and some of them had round. I wasn't at all consistent.
Eyes are the window to the soul. I mean, we touched on this a little bit last show about how the ancient world saw beams coming out of the eyes and touching things, and that's how you saw them. Is that your eyes actually had like a sense that would go out like little fingertips and touch it, and then you could see like my keyboard in front of me because my eye has these fingertips that are touching the keyboard, right? And so when you had evil thoughts upon you and stuff, and you were looking upon someone with that, they believed it could do physical harm to that person. That you're stabbing them with your little fingers.
I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head.
Yeah, just like this. Yeah. Yeah, do you remember the one where the guy like fights back against him? And he's oh no, I try and crush you, and he's like, yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, we went to Kids in the Hall for a second.
Yeah, well, now we're straying way off the path, but it was nice to see them back as well recently.
Yeah, guys, I have limited time today. I got stuff. Yeah, I need to do. So I need to head out early. You guys can continue chatting.
That's not
Well,
not early. You're not leaving early. You're leaving 7 minutes late.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think an hour and a half is about good. I think we'll call it for a show,
Okay.
and
All right, then I'll stick around to the end.
Yeah, I'm going to play the theme tune now. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. Cheers, Roger. I don't have my glasses on, but I can see we had some nice viewers. Thank you for comments. Sorry, we'll try and be better at responding to comments. But we've had a wonderful guest, James Windor-smith. Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thanks,
Nice
James.
to meet you too, guys.
See a bit of your work, and maybe we'll come back on again someday in the future. We'll chat again, and
Yeah.
Definitely
Right.
sounds good.
and everybody remember September 9th. It's going to be the art event. Amber's going to be here. She's going to be broadcasting, live streaming.
We have tickets now.
From our event, yeah, and there'll be an art auction that you can participate on if you're not in San Francisco, and you'll be able to see the live stream, and it will all be very, very fun. So we'll talk more about that next time. Next time we've got Thomas Muir coming on, who helped us master the album, although he says Chris did most of the work there. So,
that's going to be fun.
But yeah, so we'll be.
I'm going to get to ask questions that, like audio questions, and you guys are going to be like, "What?" It's kind of like how I am in every episode with the.
Well, Chris will be. Yeah, maybe we'll have Chris host next week, and he can sort of ask Thomas questions. All right. Anyway, here's the theme tune, everyone. Bye.
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 Here's a theme song for the showy. He asked me to write one, but I stole from David Bowie. Here's a theme song. Chuck Wheelan is the best. We have lots of hosts, but we're running out of gas. Will you be our guest on? Will you be our guest on? Beyond the Chuck Wheelan Show. Whoa, 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 whoa. If you're gonna have a